everybody, this is Jeremy Carlson, and you are listening to the Bluegrass Sports Performance Podcast. Today, we are talking with Coach Caden Ritter, head strength and conditioning coach at Martha Lane Collins High School and Shelby County High School through UofL Health. Coach, how are we doing today?
Good, Coach. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing great. I'm excited to be able to get you on. I think we met back at the state clinic last year, if I remember correctly. And so excited to get you on and actually be able to spend some time with you today. Before we get going into the programming perspective, talk to us a little bit about just who you are, where you're from, kind of how you got your start in this.
Sounds good. So I'm from Kearney, Missouri originally, which is just 30 minutes north of Kansas City, Missouri. Went to the same high school. I was a lucky high school kid. I had a strength and conditioning coach there. Was able to take weightlifting class all the way from freshman year all the way up through senior year of high school. From there, I went and played college basketball up at Simpson College in Indianola, Iowa for 2 years. And while there, I got a bachelor's of art in athletic training. So I'm actually a certified athletic trainer as well. And then the goal going there was to go to PT school, be a physical therapist, did all the shadowing, hated it. Junior year, I started being a intern in the strength conditioning department just because I loved working out and stuff. So in the mornings, I was in the weight room with the college strength staff, and then in the afternoons I was in the AT room. So I saw the athletes a lot, got those relationships a lot, and then from there I just kind of, I had a great upbringing being having a strength and conditioning coach in high school. So I wanted to give the kids the same opportunity that I got. So, and then I graduated from there in 2020, so COVID year. Took me a while to find a job in the field just because nowhere was hiring, athletic training wise or strength conditioning wise. So moved back home, lived with my parents, worked construction for a little with my dad, enrolled and got my master's in kinesiology at Avila University while I was doing that. And then I was able to find a job in Liberty, Missouri at a sports medicine clinic that offered strength conditioning for adults and athletes. So kind of a private facility. I did that for about a year and a half before I saw this job that I'm in now at UofL Health on Twitter. Reached out to Dr. Pat Ivy and Dr. Ernie Reimer, applied for it, went through the interview process, and moved 8 hours away from Kansas City. I've almost been here for a year and a half now.
Lovely. So, awesome. That's great. Okay. So do this for me. Talk to us a little bit about what your experience was like having a high school strength and conditioning coach. Was he a sport coach? Talk to us a little bit about that. And then as you go along, maybe compare some of the things that you learned as a high school student, maybe that were challenged or were illuminated a little bit when you got to the college level and you had a college strength coach.
Okay. So, being at the high school that I did, the strength conditioning coach, he was also the head football coach, and we were a small town football school. We were known for our football. So he had a very successful program, won multiple state titles and everything. So his name is Coach Jones. He influenced me a lot. I mean, he even spoke at I didn't play football in high school, but him and I had a relationship. He came and spoke at my signing when I signed to play college basketball. So, and him and I are still in close contact, and just that relationship that he built with all the kids. I mean, he was at every sporting event, didn't matter if it was basketball, baseball, softball. If you worked out with him, he'd make an appearance and stuff. And so just that relationship that he built with the kids. I mean, the programming that we did was what the football team did, but I mean, when you're working with multiple athletes, anything's better than nothing.
Yeah. So, absolutely. And then you get to the college realm. Talk to us a little bit about your exposure. You played a sport, so you got to experience it a little bit from that. And then you also got to experience it from kind of the intern-ish side as well, being able to help out. How did your understanding of strength and conditioning start changing once you got into that realm?
Yep. So I was definitely prepared to be a college athlete on the strength conditioning side. I went in as probably one of the stronger guys on the team. And in the 4 years I was there, there was 3 or 4 different strength and conditioning coaches. Being a small college, they cycled through a lot. So I saw a lot of different views, a lot of different styles of programming. The culture as a whole at the school wasn't very big in strength and conditioning. So seeing those challenges and the coaches trying to grow that aspect of it, you had your typical teams that just didn't like to work out because they didn't think it was important for their sport. Um, and so then now that, once I started being um, an intern for 'em, getting to combat that, talk with coaches, meet with athletes. I ran a lot of the smaller teams, cheer, dance, helped out with football, helped out with soccer. So just being there and seeing the program. It didn't get to do much program, more just a lot of technique work, and then just building relationships with the athletes, and being there a consistent view in the weight room was, I think, helpful because I was there for almost 2 years as an intern for them.
That's awesome. That's great. How was it being able to maybe coach some of your peers, right? I mean, at that time you were going to
Yeah.
school there. You
Yep.
had kids that were the same age as you for the most part. How was that trying to put on coach hat or different things like that?
I never really had an issue with it because I think they just kind of, at first, there might have been a little bit of, oh, what does he know? But then, once you show that you're confident in what you're teaching them and know, they kind of buy in. And I think it helped that, like, I was in the weight room with them in the morning, and then I was in the athletic training room with them in the afternoon because it was a small college. There's only like two full-time athletic trainers. So like our student cohort of athletic trainers, like we traveled with the teams and
Mhm.
everything. So like, we just built those relationships with the coaches, with the athletes. So, my senior year, we traveled for every football game, home or away. I was in the weight room in the morning with the football team. The coaches saw me, so, like, just building those relationships, I think, is the biggest part in that, and they just learn to trust you. I'm not gonna lead them down the wrong path. I'm gonna lead them to, hopefully, victories and less injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. And then added layer on top of that, and you already mentioned it, is you are a certified athletic trainer. So how does that, and let's go down this road first. You said you were potentially thinking about being a physical therapist.
Yep,
What was, you said you didn't really enjoy it
yep.
too much when you were getting your hours, different things like that. What was something that you didn't enjoy, and why did you keep coming back to strength and conditioning?
I just didn't enjoy the monotony of the job with
Mm.
physical therapy. Kind of seemed like you do the same thing with all the same patient. Like it might be different patients, but still the same injuries and stuff. So you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And like I knew I wanted to work with athletes, and trying to break into like sports physical therapy is super super hard right out of like school. So like being able to do that, I just being with my dual certification as athletic training and um, strength conditioning now, it just gives me a unique lens where I can bring in those AT sides and stuff. And a lot of my programming has a lot of, added, prehab stuff that I feel like some coaches don't do. And I think that's just my AT side coming through because, I've seen so many injuries and know a lot of the mechanisms of injuries and stuff that happen that sometimes I feel like some strength coaches might not know as much
Yeah,
about.
absolutely.
Like, it just gives me that unique lens.
Yeah, I'm interested once we get to that point in talking about your programming, just to kind of see what those differences are, because I do think that that's a really
Yeah,
unique perspective that you're going to be able to bring to this, is showing the difference that that an ATC might have, right? And we all have different experience, all different backgrounds. You played basketball, I played soccer, somebody played football, right? We're going to bring our sport perspective to it, but we're also going to bring our experiences educationally to it as well. So I won't go down that rabbit hole just yet.
yep.
We'll wait till we get to some of the programming. Okay, good. Talk to us a little bit about your setup, because this is something I do want to dig into a little bit. You have a unique setup in which right now you're working at two high schools, but you're not an employee at those high schools. You
Yes.
are a employee of
Employee.
UofL Health. So I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth and try to describe what your job is. I'll let you do
Okay.
that. But
So
give us 1,000-foot overview, and then we'll talk about each school individually.
so I was sitting thinking about this, and I just reached out to my boss and had him send me a blurb, 1,000-foot view, like you said, of it. So I'm gonna read what he said. His name's Brett Hayes. He's the administrative director of the sports medicine team. So the mission of the sports medicine and human performance in the community centers, um, around making a difference. That's our CEO's Tom Miller. That's his biggest thing is make a difference in your community. So UofL Health has a policy to transform the health of the communities we serve. Strength conditioning is slowly starting to be recognized as a medical ancillary service similar to PT, nursing, nutrition. The research in strength conditioning is, it blows away a lot of those, in my opinion. It's changing all the time. It's better and better exercise science, strength conditioning. It's been long recognized that sport injury can attribute in many cases to poor strength conditioning techniques, especially at secondary school level. Sports medicine understands that mitigating injuries in athletics starts with the development of base athleticism. UofL Health takes the responsibility seriously, despite the fact that injuries in the athletic arena account for a great deal of revenue in most healthcare systems. UofL Health recognizes a greater responsibility to the overall health of our community. Investing in protecting our youth through strength conditioning interventions is the right thing to do, and we are proud to be one of the few systems in the country to invest in that.
Wow.
So we are, we're pretty much, a simple way to look at this too is we're trying to take what they do with D1 athletics, since UofL Health works with UofL athletics, and we're trying to give all those same resources and the capability that we can to our high school kids. So a kid gets injured, most of the time we can get them in the next day through our athletic trainers, through our management, to see a doctor, get imaging, get them back to the turn faster, get them in with our physical therapist. That's where we come in, where, if it's a school athlete I'm working with, I can communicate with the PT, so what they can or can't do in the weight room. I can actually go to their PT appointments, work with them at the clinic and stuff. And we're just creating this just circle of communication between athletic trainers at the schools that we work with, because we work with 14 high schools where we have full-time athletic trainers at. Currently, we have 2 full-time strength coaches, a 3rd position open. So if anybody's interested, apply.
I'll plug it. There we go. Love it.
So, and more to come. We want, right now it's 2 high schools, 2-3 high schools per strength conditioning coach, which I know is not, not ideal for some coaches, but the more the more a fear of missing out of these schools, the more they want to invest in it. These schools want to invest in their student athletes and stuff. So we're, bringing in our nutrition department at the hospital, our mental health and mental performance team at the hospitals. There's individuals at the university level that are working on grants to do studies with the high school kids on mental health and mental performance, and give them education, educating the coaches, parents. So there's a lot of things we do. A typical week for me, I'm at Martha Lynn Collins High School 3 days a week. And then I'm at Shelby County 2 days a week. And so that's before school training, after school training. During football season last year, I helped with, hydration protocol for the football team and the soccer team. Pregame lifts with teams.
Awesome. So when you guys, again, I know that you're a part of this mission, is how do schools, I guess, learn more about UofL Health to be able to get kind of plugged into that? It's because you're basically contracted out by UofL Health to go to these schools. And how did UofL, if you know the origin, you may not, but how did the UofL Health get tied into some of these high schools to be able to provide the services that you're now providing?
So mainly just started on the athletic training side. So we work with 14 high schools that we provide, cover athletic training for, where there's full-time athletic trainers at. And some schools have 2 full-time just because of the, mass of students that they have. So there's 2. At some, we have like me, I'll cover on the PRN side athletic training, as needed, I'll help out. I mainly just cover at Collins and Shelby County because I'm out there anyways. I'm not going to drive across town to go cover another high school. So I cover there, help cover on weekends as well. And so that's and they just want to take it a step farther now by, we're providing athletic trainers. Now we want to bring strength conditioning in, mental health, mental performance, nutrition. So it's just, providing all those.
Yeah, it's a really interesting setup, right? Because mostly coaches that I've talked to at the high school level, they're employed by the school district. You're in a unique situation. You're the first person I've interviewed that's not employed by the school district. You're being contracted out, which is really fascinating, because I know for like UK, a few other places in Central Kentucky, they do that as well for some of our local high schools. So I'll be interested to see if that continues to develop, and hopefully it does, because I think I think it could provide a really unique
Yes.
service.
And
Okay, talk to us about the individual schools as best you can. Talk to us just, and again, 1,000-foot overview of the
yep.
schools, where they're located,
Yep.
what equipment you have available, just kind of all those different types of things so that we can start digging into it. And again, understand your programming a little bit better when we go to look at
Yep.
it.
So at Martha Lane Collins High School, start there. I've been working there since last May and March. I started there with volleyball and baseball. So both those teams I'm coming up on a year working with. So I'm excited for baseball season because they've made strides all off season. We have 4 double-sided racks, so 8 racks. A few bumper plates, metal plates, your array of dumbbells in the high school level from anywhere from 25s to 550s to 100, 195.
Mhm.
Um, and then we have, muting my notifications. There we go. It's a fairly decent space. We have a lot of opening, and then another benefit I'll throw in there of being contracted out of these 14 high schools is, and UofL Health having the contract with athletics is when athletics gets new racks and gear and stuff, we get the option to get them first to spread them out to our community high schools
Hmm.
and stuff. So actually yesterday 3 new to us racks at Collins got installed from the Marshall Center there at U of L.
Nice. That's
So we
awesome.
have 3 hammer strength racks. They have your, clean pull blocks attached to them, all that fancy stuff. So now we have 11 total racks in there, which is nice. I know Shelby County, I think, is getting 2 of them as well. And they have 4 double-sided racks in there. They have a little turf strip in there. Same dumbbells, plates. Shelby County has a bunch of trap bars, so we do a lot of trap bar stuff there. Collins actually has 2 weight rooms. We don't really utilize the inside one right now. It was flooded by the baseball team,
Oh,
so hit sprinkler because the batting cage was in there.
okay.
So we're actually working on hopefully getting securing funding from the district to redo that weight room. So that's something that I'll help out with as well to make sure it's done right and for long term goals, not just
Mhm.
the quick fix.
Yeah.
Um, and so a lot of the stuff I do is done at the racks in groups. One side of the racks will be doing something, the other side of the racks will be doing something else. Third group will be up in the open space, 10, 15 minutes of work. We're switching. I'm big on station work. I like, full body. Just in high school, my strength conditioning coach called them like FMTs, functional muscle training. We'd be out on the turf, tire flips, sled pushes, battle ropes,
Yep.
hill sprints, just kind of, doing work. And then that's something that I want to incorporate this summer as well with all my teams because I think that's just, important as well as you just, yeah, it's going to suck and hurt, but just get through it and you're going to be better after it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so when we talk to us about your schedule then, because
Yep.
again, unique. Again, you're not some
Mhm.
coaches I've got that have come on here are coached throughout the day, right? And they've got it broken down into class periods. I'm assuming yours is a little bit of a different setup. You're
Yep.
at Martha Lane College 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday,
Yep.
Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. You're going over to Shelby County. Talk
Yep.
to us about what your day looks like, generally speaking, between those two schools.
Yep. So most Monday, Wednesday, Friday at Collins, I'll have the baseball team in the mornings. They go 6 a.m. before school, and then I usually have a team after them. So either basketball or lacrosse, and then work with those teams. Clean up the weight room after that, make sure everything's picked up, reorganized, and then work out myself usually there at Collins. And then, sometimes I'll have meetings that I have to go downtown to our office and stuff for, meet with Andrew, sometimes working with North Bullett's PE coach on their strength conditioning
Mhm.
class as well. So meet with him Zoom wise, help him with programming and stuff. So that's other things that we do through UofL Health is, help PE teachers that want to get in, educate them, empower them. We're doing a coaches clinic in February at Shelby County to educate coaches on weight room technique, weight room flow, and then we're bringing in our nutrition staff. So that's some of the other stuff that work on throughout the day. And then usually, my first team after school starts about 3:45, and then football's a little longer group, so there's usually not many people after football. So sometimes right now it's football's right after school on Monday, Wednesday, then I have track after, and then I have girls lacrosse. So I'm usually there till about 6:15 at night, 6:30, and then I'm coming, clocking out and coming back home for the
All right.
day. So
All right. Awesome. So now that we've got kind of the general setup of what those look like, before we actually turn into the programming, if you were just to describe your programming, I know you gave us a little
yep.
blurb into it already, a little sight into it already with having your station work, and different things like that. But just talk to us. Are we looking at tier system? Just kind of set the stage for what we're looking at. Tier system, triphasic, how would you start to look at your programming so that, again, the person that's going to look at this or listen to this is going to go, okay, I have the general mindset of what this is going to go forward with.
Yep, so I have a GPP phase, kind of two of them depending on the experience level of the kids, 1 by 20. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. A lot of coaches start that off for a GPP phase. That's when I'm working with, athletes that have never trained at all before. And, we're just hammering technique. That's where we're doing our goblet squats, empty barbell squats, zombie squats, just learning all the basics of the movement patterns. And the kind of second stage of that would be I like 5-3-1. I think it's a very simple program. I think it helps the kids understand the movements, working at those training maxes so the kids don't fail reps. That's a big thing for me is like, I don't want the kids to fail reps unless I put in like a set that I know that's going to be tough. Like right now for the baseball and football team, they're, football team's in a GPP phase right now doing 5-3-1. Yesterday was squat day. They had they had 2 warm-up sets, 3 working sets, and their 6th set was a pretty much a burnout set, 20 reps. We went back to that first working set weight, so it's lighter, and it's just get as many reps as you can until you can't. And I had kids failing. That's when I want them to fail or push through and get the 20 reps to push through it mentally more than anything. And then I move into more of like a triphasic, still working off that training max. So 3-week eccentric, then a 2-week isometric, and then 2 weeks of speed, and then we'll test, and then we kind of redo it. And I kind of try to fit that GPP phase to either be 4 weeks or 3 weeks to work up to like this phase will go right up to spring break, off spring break, and then right up to dead period during the summer off those
Yeah.
2 weeks. So I kind of spread out that GPP phase. Sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's 4 weeks, trying to fit it the best so I can fit
Yeah,
it
just
to the
kind of depending
calendar.
on what the schedule is there. That makes sense. Okay, perfect. Well, do this for us. Go ahead and share your screen just so that we can start looking into the actual like nuts and bolts of the programming. And
Yep.
just as a reminder for those folks that are listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you find this podcast, is if you want to see what we are talking about on screen, you can also go over to YouTube, search Bluegrass Sports Performance, and you will be able to find our breakdowns here. I think that this is what makes the podcast unique is that you actually get to see behind the scenes a little bit and see what coaches are talking about. So I will turn it back over to Coach and allow him to start kind of talking us through what we're looking at, and we'll start diving into picking apart some programming.
Sounds good. So, this will be the longest I've been at one school back in Kansas City. I was at a private thing, so athletes would come in 1 to 2 months and out. So it was really hard to develop an annual plan and everything. So I'm still working on one. I have one for the spring team. It's the same thing. I don't change programming. I don't make it sports specific. I could in the situation that I am, but I still have teams coming in one in right after the other. And in my view, it is all these high school kids need the same thing. They need to be efficient movers. They need to be strong. They need to be powerful, and they need to know how to move. So my biggest thing is movement quality, intent when you're working out. Don't move the weight slow. Move it fast and explosive. So looking here, this says, fall yearly plan, but really, this could be changed just depending on the time of season to fit
Mhm.
spring and winter sports as well. So this would be, my annual plan. And as you see, it's still a work in progress. I
Mhm.
change and tweak things as needed. And I'll probably be doing that the rest of my career because it's just how it is. I wish you could just build one program and it'd work the rest of your life, but that's not how it is.
It would
So,
be nice, but you know what? Then there would be no strength and conditioning coaches and no need for podcasts either for us to be talking about it.
yep.
So I'm with you on that.
So this is just a big overarching view. Like I said, we start in our 4 week GPP phase where we're focusing on strength, mass, our agility. If we can get outside, if weather permits, we're doing a lot of reaction drills, a lot of competition. I'm big on competing. Let's just compete. L races, T races, mirror drills when it's agility wise. And we're slowly building up our acceleration. Staying in that 10 to 15 yard range. Same with our max velocity sprints. We're not just going straight to 40 because I don't need any hamstring injuries. So we're building up slowly over the 11 weeks to 40 yards, starting at 20, 25, and that's if we can get outside. This week we haven't been able to get outside, so we haven't been, and we don't have the space inside to do any sort of um, max acceleration or really any space to do agility or velocity work. So we can do, station body weight conditioning where that's pretty much, I pick a simple movement, whether it be bear crawl, repeated medicine ball slams, line drills, marches, carries, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And we're just rotating through that. And that's kind of our conditioning, super simple. The kids, they like it because we're not just out there running on the turf or the
Right.
grass field.
So
So
when we're looking at this too, so just so coaches can maybe understand it a little bit more, when you have your agility, your acceleration, your velo stuff, right? And you talked about it, depending on what the situation is, depending on what the weather is outside, right? There are a lot of factors that go into that, what space is available. But if you were to have your agility, if you were to have your acceleration, max velo, are those things that you're timing? Are we always competing? What's your general rule of thumb? For this one, right, it's
yep,
fall off season, so we're really early in the process, right?
yep,
It's football. That's what we're looking at. We're
yep.
really not competing until
Yeah.
we get into August. But what data are you collecting? What are you trying to, I guess, be able to show back to coaches as we go along?
So for my football coaching staff at Collins is very hands-on. They're always there watching and stuff, seeing and stuff. And I will say the only data I really collect is during that test week, just because of resources.
Mm,
We don't have timing gates or anything, so we're hand timing everything, and
yep.
to run 10-yard splits or anything, once or twice a week. That just takes time that I don't have when I only have an hour in the weight room.
Yep.
Um, so a lot of that's group. A lot of it's competition, especially when like the agility stuff. The rate, just trying to get them to compete longer and not take their seasons 4 months and they only compete for those 4 months
Yep.
and they don't do any competition or any sort of competing the rest of the year. I think that's big, and I think that's something that's kind of lacking in sports nowadays is they don't compete enough.
Hmm.
Um, and then another thing we started doing is, we'll do our agility and acceleration and max velocity on Mondays. Wednesdays, we'll still do max velocity stuff. But we've started throwing in like some contact prep stuff, medicine ball tug of war, resisted bear crawls against each other, just, to get the football players. And we did it with lacrosse just to get them used to that contact because, if they don't hit anybody until season starts in July, that's kind of when, as an athletic trainer, that side of it, you see the injury spike.
Hmm.
So we'll throw in stuff like that, and a lot of that contact prep is competition stuff too. With the medicine tug of war, that's their favorite. It's just who's going to be the bigger boy and who's going to just rip that medicine ball out of their
Hmm.
hands. So you'd think it might be the big offensive linemen, but it's not. It's usually your middle linebacker or just a gritty kid that's just not going to let that ball come out of their hand.
Yep. Yep.
So it's fun to see them compete. They like it.
Well,
So
that's part of the thing too,
yep.
finding out what the kids like,
Mhm.
right? And I'm sure
Yep.
you, like you said, you're at a place for a year plus now. You're finding
Yep.
those things,
Yep.
which is always great. The one comment I want to make on it, and I think that sometimes when we look at the Twitter sphere or Instagram or all of those things about coaches, having the time, having to do different things,
Yep.
sometimes your situation just doesn't allow for that,
Yep.
right? And coach has given us a great example of what that means, working within the resources that you have.
Yep.
Not always are you going to have the ability or to have 15 timing gates just sitting
Yep.
off and you can run an entire team of 40 plus athletes through it, right? Every time that you go in there, you're going to have to think of creative ways to make that work, which is great to see. And that's why I wanted to ask that question, because I think so many of us right now are going like, well, I got to get a timing gate, or I got to get a jump mat, or I got to get something, right?
Yep.
The principles are always still applying. You're having
Yeah.
to apply those principles to the
Yeah.
training, and that's what's important.
And part of me, that's why I like the high school, is because you don't have all the fancy resources and toys. You have to be creative in the training and the programming, and like you can write the perfect program on paper, but it's not going to work at the high school level.
Yep.
I mean, it's just not going to. You
Yes.
have to be able to adapt. I think I've adapted a workout almost every time just to fit the space and need that we have. Like, oh, can't use the turf anymore because lacrosse on it. Can't use the track. Grass fields full of potholes. So
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So, talk to us about, and you were starting to dive into before I cut you off, so that's my apologies.
yep.
Monday's going to look a certain way, Wednesday's
Yep.
going to look a certain way, and Friday's going to look a certain way. Give us and I know we're going to get into it in a second, but again, just broad overview of this is generally what we're doing on Monday, generally what we're doing on Wednesday, generally what we're
Yeah.
doing on Friday.
So Mondays, we're hitting um, agility, acceleration, a little bit of each, a little bit of max velocity. That is our probably our highest central nervous system day, because that's when we're working on power cleans and hang cleans. I've stripped them back. The football staff is big on power cleans. Technique level's not there, so I've stripped them back. We're working on clean pulls, proper catching it. We're front squatting right now, getting everybody just building those right quality movements. Because I think what they used to do as a football team, they're strong. They're one of probably the strongest teams I've worked with. We're just working on the movement quality, just making them look more athletic on the field of play, which I've been working with them since I think we started in December after season ended, and it's already showing. The guys are getting faster. They're looking just more athletic on the field when we're doing sprints, whether we're running wickets or um, just running sprints. When we're warming up and we're doing certain stretches, they just look more. They can get in different positions that they might not have been able to, this time last year, which is great. So it's just taking a slow approach at it. I'd love to be power cleaning them right now, and I know they would love to be power cleaning, but I want them all to be able to front squat in the front rack position,
Yep.
and be able to have the poles right and not using all their upper body. So it's just taking that patient approach and getting them to buy into the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so and then start talking to us a little bit. I think most people with your general strength,
Yep.
GPP phase, most people have heard of
Yep.
5-3-1. Most
Yep.
people understand the basic linear periodization that goes into it. If not, there's 15 million
Yep.
articles out there.
Yep.
It's one of the most simple, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing. Like
Yeah.
I still use 5-3-1. I love
I've gone
5-3-1.
away from it, and I always come back to it. So
Yep. It's
I'm
just
just gonna
one.
stick. I'm
Yeah,
just gonna
it's
stick
just
with
a
it
it's
now.
a it's a good solid program.
Yep.
But what I'm interested in you kind of talking about too, because I don't think I've really had anybody on here that's talked about it yet, is talk to us a little bit about your kind of next phase, which on here is week 5, 6, 7, 8
Yep.
plus, where you start getting into some of your triphasic stuff. What
Yep.
is triphasic? How did you stumble upon it? And then what are some of the things that you like about it?
Yeah. So triphasic is pretty much breaking down the movement pattern. So you have your eccentric phase, your isometric, and then like your speed concentric phase of movement. So that's say you're talking about your squat, your eccentrics going down, isometrics the pause at the bottom, the speed phase, the concentric is what you're coming up with. So this is actually fairly new. My baseball team will, if the weather was permitted this week, they're actually supposed to be, testing this week after their first phase of triphasic. So hopefully they're not doing anything dumb on their own, and we can test next week. And
Yeah.
the whole week of rest will actually be good for them, and we should see good numbers. But I've seen the Farmington strength conditioning coach do this. I had a little bit of experience with it in college. I'm reading all the manuals from Cal Dietz on it right now, just trying to learn more about it. What I like about it is, it's just different than and the kids enjoy it, like the pauses, the eccentrics. It's challenging. We're still working at those training loads, the training maxes. Then I just like it going through the phases because, like 5-3-1, you're going to get strong doing 5-3-1, but like most sports, you need to be powerful and explosive.
Right.
And with triphasic, it builds that power, the explosiveness. You're training all phases of the movement. So you're building strength in those positions. You're building them on the way down, because most injuries happen in the eccentric phase when you're stopping the deceleration and not in the concentric phase of movement. So you're building the strength in the eccentric phase. You're building it at the bottom of those positions, the deep squats, single leg work, same thing with the clean pulls. And then, then you get to, take all the restraints off, and the boy's going to move the weight and the girl's going to move the weight as fast as they can. They get to be explosive. They get to load up the bars. And, the comment I kept on getting with baseball last week was like, my 95% doesn't feel like 95% anymore. I was like, well, it shouldn't. We've been doing this for almost 11 weeks.
Yep. Absolutely. So when you start doing triphasics, I've played around with it too. I think there are a lot of things I like about it. There are some things I don't necessarily like about it. And especially when you start reading some of Cal's stuff. One, he's a mad scientist. So sometimes when he's going into some stuff, I'm like, all right, I got to read this like 3 times. When you're programming, right, one thing that Cal really is big on in some of the programs that he shows and different things like that, he uses a French contrast or complex training or different things like that. Again, you're working with high schoolers. So how have you adapted something that is a triphasic, when you start looking at the French contrast, you've got 4 exercises, and then usually you have 4 like accessory exercises that they get done in between, and then they start back over again. And there's a lot of moving parts. I'm assuming, but you know what they always say about assuming. I'm assuming you're probably not putting all of those in there. So talk to us a little bit about maybe what that looks like.
Yep. So I'll bring it up here to the loads, but no, I'm more just adding the time constraints to the movements. I'm starting off, my workouts are kind of, and I've been talking with the Farmington strength conditioning coach about this as well, is, I try to, add the time constraints. We're not maybe doing triphasic how it's supposed to be done, but we're doing it what works for us and what the kids like. So I'll pull up the kind of the 3-week eccentric phase here for us once it loads. But
and while it's loading, tell us what app this is, because I actually haven't seen this one before, so I'm just genuinely curious, because I've seen Team Builder, Sheets, different things like that, but this is new to me. So explain to us what programming software this is and how you got attached to it.
Yep. So this is it's called Fit, FYTT.io. It's an all-encompassing. We can do anything from individualize. I could individualize a whole team's programming here based on questionnaires where they all are doing a similar programming, but it's so like the questions are so specific, like they all could be doing something just a little different based on their position. I can, like you saw, there's plans. So you pretty much start at the workout level, build your workouts, then you build it into a plan, then you assign it to the teams. There's different levels. So all the high schools we work with at UofL Health can have access to this. I have access to all 14 high schools and the institutional database. So everything, all the workouts, exercises, training programs that I build are the institutional level. and then technically anybody can pull from them.
Interesting.
Our
Okay.
athletic trainers have access to this as well, where they can assign rehabs through this to the kids. Kids can get it on their phones. It's a mobile app. So it's very, it can be very simple to use, but you can also go very in depth in it and advanced. So I use it very simple just because that's what I need for high school kids, because technology connection sometimes isn't the best in
Absolutely.
high
Okay.
school.
Sorry, I got us off track there.
You're
Back
good.
to
Yep.
programming. Back to programming. So talk to us a little bit about what we're looking at here, how this would kind of roll, what tweaks you've made with triphasic to make it work in your setting.
Yep. So this is actually the new cycle that baseball is supposed to start. We're just going to do a mini, and that's kind of one of the things I like about triphasic is we're just because they technically start practicing like February 17th. Baseball does here in Kentucky, so we're just going to do a mini triphasic phase, and that's going to be 2 weeks eccentric, 1 week isometric, and 1 week speed off the leash is what I call it. I got that phrase from the Farmington strength and conditioning coach. I just like it. It just means no constraints, move the weight as fast as you can, be explosive, be strong. And so I like it because you can, with Olympic lifts, you can still do it. You can have that tempo down on the hang clean pull and then explode into the hang clean. And I've just kind of broke it down. Like sometimes I'll have the tempos like the seated box jumps. I'm gonna have them go down 4 seconds. Once that 4 seconds will hit at the bottom. When they hit the seat, then they'll explode up onto the box. The back squat, they're moving down at the 6 seconds. Once they hit the bottom, they're exploding up. Clean pulls, and then our barbell reverse lunges, this is a new one. This is kind of our progression from front foot elevated split squats. Now we're progressing to barbell reverse lunges. So for this phase, I'm actually taking, there's going to be no constraints. I just want them to work through the motion for these 4 weeks. And then once season starts, they're still going to be doing triphasic. We're just going to play. It's still going to, the program's still going to look like this, but based on their game schedule and stuff, I'll just, like cut the reps in half, or, hey, we're no tempos on the eccentrics today. You got a game tomorrow, or, and just, look at the game schedule and I'm going to play it like that. Like, I'm not going to change the program and fit. I mean, I could, but just time wise, I'm just not going to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm just going to, as we get into it.
Yeah, right. And again, I after spending 2 years at the high school level, the more that I had time to reflect on it, the longer I was there. They just need consistent training, right? Like it doesn't necessarily need to be overly
Nope.
complicated. When you
And
get to a senior in college that's been training since they were a 14-year-old
yep,
and they have 8 years of experience and they're
yep,
trying to be an All-American in something, okay, yeah, maybe we've got some more
yep.
specifics
And that's how I kind of look at it too. Like looking at my program, it's simple. It's very simple. Every, block sees the assistant work. It's all, 3x12. There's body weight exercises in there, dumbbell stuff. The hang clean pulls, I always try to pair something with, something easy with the main movement for the day, just, so kids aren't standing around. So everybody's doing something. And that's where on like the whiteboard, I will tend to throw in, especially with my larger groups, when we have 3 or 4 guys to a rack, I'll always have a spotter, someone doing the main work, someone doing the assigned work, like the incline ITYs, but then I'll throw in, 90-90 hip flips, some of those prehab exercises that I get from being, my athletic training background as well. That's where I'll throw in those, just so kids aren't just standing around. They're not going to raise your heart rate. They're not going to make you tired for your main work, but just something, they might not enjoy it or think it's dumb or something, but really it's like, okay, you're doing these now, your single leg tap downs from a 6-inch box, now we're training our knees so they're strong.
Yeah. So talk to us a
Like
little
that.
bit about that, because I know that I said I was going to circle back to
Yep.
around. Talk to us about some things that we're looking here on the screen that are influenced because of your athletic training background. How have you been, and you've already mentioned it briefly, but how you've been able to sneak them in, and
Yep.
then how you've kind of seen that paying off for them.
So A lot of that block A, a lot of those last exercises is a lot of, mobility. I noticed with a lot of high school athletes, hip mobility is terrible. So a lot of hamstring strengthening with the hamstring flosses, the 90-90 hip flips. We're working through last cycle on day 3, they did their leg lift. So they pick it up from the ground, set it down, controlled motion, 5 each side. This time we're going to pick it up, hold for a count, working on just that external rotation of the hip and being able to control it. One thing I really like is the Copenhagen side planks. I don't know if they have a different name. If you know what those are, your top foot's on the bench, bottom one's just kind of there at a bent position. One thing I noticed, this one kind of comes from personal experience. One thing I always injured in playing high school and college basketball is like groin injuries. I don't know if it was from just overextending, so just strengthening your groin and your abductors there. Is I think huge on that one. Plus, you get the core out of it. The incline ITYs, we're just working, shoulder strengthening, lightweight, 2.5, 5 pounds, and they're just doing the alphabet there. As you can see, this is baseball. So, some of those prehabs, that's where it'll be more specific. We're doing our forearm curls, we're doing our rotator cuff work, we're doing our lat work. Football, that's where I'll throw in neck, ankle work, knees. Everybody's going to get knee stuff, everybody's going to get hip stuff. Volleyball player, baseball, softball is going to get more upper body work. Basketball is going to get a lot more lower body work.
Yeah,
So
it's funny because me and my staff were talking about this the other day. Is just how much different big rocks, right? Like, and when I think of big rocks, squatting, lunging, hinging, those things. Like, we were going through our program the other day, and we were looking at it, and we were like, "Huh." A lot of our athletes are doing a lot of the same thing. But then when we get specific with it, is exactly what you're saying, right? The rehab stuff, the prehab stuff that we're trying to make sure that we get to. The big rocks pretty much are staying the same, but those little ins and outs are what make the program, and I'm gonna put it in quotations because I don't know if anything in the weight room is sport specific, but in quotation marks, sports specificity is their rehab stuff, right? You could genuinely look at this and go, I could see a basketball player doing this, but then
at my basketball program, it'd be very similar. It just might be like in different phases. Like, this is baseball's programming. They're back squatting right now. You look at any of my off-season teams, they're front squatting and working on clean technique. We're doing clean pulls, but baseball, only reason baseball isn't doing catches anymore just because we're getting close to season. I don't want the increased chance of injury with catching a clean, so we're just moving to clean pulls, and we'll do those throughout the season. We're going to back squat these next 4 weeks, then we're maybe going to move to back to a front squat, just so you get a little bit of that tricep stretch, lat stretch in there in that front rack position, or you might move to like a Zercher squat or something just to take the load off the axial spine, just because yes, I know baseball, you don't get much of that load like you do football, but just, baseball season's a long season. They play a lot of games. It's stressful. Like, let's just take off that extra stress and do something maybe a little simpler. That's not going to put as much stress on their body.
Yes, no, absolutely. And that's the key, is that we are managing stress as they go through, especially at the high school level. Again, the volume of games that most high schoolers play is beyond me. I mean, it is a large volume, especially when you start. Football does a much better job of it, keeping it regulated. But when you start breaking out into AAU stuff or club sports or whatever the rigmarole may be outside of the actual high school sport as well, there's a lot of volume that's going on with those kids that really can hinder their development if not thought about. And that's why I think having a qualified strength and conditioning coach in that position helps out so much.
Most of the time when I'm programming, I try to do, my block A is going to be something explosive, box jumps, repeated jumps. I'm starting to dabble with a hang snatch and stuff, and complex with that, just to build a little bit of conditioning. There's going to be some sort of carry or core exercises. You got side planks, bear crawl stance, shoulder taps, and then some sort of, mobility stretch exercise in there as well. That's kind of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we're moving on to the main work. Obviously, it's a lot of the main work's lower body, even for, say, my baseball team. But, your power for hitting, your power for throwing, your speed, your running, all that comes from your hips and your glutes and your hamstrings. So, and then a lot of my, there's always going to be a push, a pull, a squat, single leg squat, double leg squat. There's always going to be, I'm just making sure they're getting every movement pattern
Mm-hmm.
at least once or twice a week.
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely. And that's
if,
huge.
if an athlete gets that and it's consistently progressive and it's harder, they're going to get better. They're going to get faster. They're going to get stronger. So
Absolutely.
that's the big philosophy for me. It's just a consistent, well thought out strength conditioning program.
Yeah. What does this look like? How does it differ? And you can show it to us, or you don't have to. You can just talk us through it, whatever works better for you. What does this change look like? Because you're at Martha Collins 3 days a
Yep.
week. Now
Yep.
you got to condense down to 2 days a week when you go to
Yep.
Shelby County. How does that start to maybe change the program a little bit?
Yep.
Do we drop? Well, of course, we drop a day, but are you literally just dropping a day and shifting?
No.
How does that work for you?
So I'll have teams that Collins work out on Tuesday and Thursdays when I'm not there, and that's just
Okay.
where at UofL Health I educate the coaches. They know what's going on. They're present at the other workouts. The expectations are the same with the athletes. They don't change just because I'm not there. They
Mm,
come in, do the high quality work, like Coach Franklin says, stack those quality days,
mhm.
and then the expectations are the same whether I'm there or not. So my volleyball team works out on Tuesday and Friday, so I only see them on Fridays at
Okay.
Collins, and so the coach runs it on Tuesday, and then I run it on Friday, and I've just kind of condensed. I've pulled out what I think's important, and just with like 2 days a week. Most of the time, I drop that first day with the Olympic lifts,
Mm.
and we're just doing explosive stuff. Just because we're only working 2 days a week, I can get other explosive stuff that's just as good as an Olympic lift with
All right.
medicine balls and box jumps. So I usually drop that Olympic lift day.
So, okay, so then continue down that road a little bit, because I'm sure in your thought process, or at least it would be if I were in your position, is you got to know that some of these days you're not going to be present.
Yep.
Exercise selection probably changes a little bit, right?
Yes.
Because not every coach is going to be comfortable being
Yep.
able to coach maybe more complex
Yep.
movements or more intricate movements.
Yep.
And nor would we want them to, right? Their job is supposed to be
Coach.
a sport
And then
coach.
my job's supposed to take off, allow them just to coach their sport.
Correct, exactly. So talk to us about that. So you used volleyball, for example. So let's just
Yep.
keep down the train with volleyball.
Um,
How does that, because like right now we're looking at a snatch, right?
yep.
Probably on that Tuesday we're not doing a snatch. We're probably
Nope.
doing something more simple that everybody can coach.
Yep. So it'd be more like your second day here that's up on the screen. We're going to be doing a front squat. There's going to be a box jump in there or a medicine ball. We're doing planks. When looking at this program, I think the major difference with the volleyball program is just the time of year. We're in our GPP phase, trying to get strong right now because their season doesn't start till July.
Yep.
Yes, the girls are in club season right now, but they're only lifting twice a week. My hour to 45 minutes, an hour that I see them. So, 2 hours a week. My 2 hours a week isn't going to fuck their club play.
Right,
So,
right,
um,
exactly.
and so it's, I'm not going to tailor it to be easier for them on their club. If on a Friday, if they have a tournament that week, they're young, they'll recover. That's one thing with high school kids is you can throw the hardest workout at them at the world and they'll come back the next day and not even be sore.
Yep.
So,
Well, and part of that too is right. I mean, they're just not lifting
yeah,
heavy enough weights
yep,
to really beat them up that badly, right? Like, and you're going to get a few kids every once in a while
yep,
that are going to be they
yeah,
look like a man when they walk in the door,
yep.
right? Or they look
There's
like a
kids
full
that look
grown
older
woman.
than me. Yep,
Yeah, I mean, you got a full grown woman that walks in the door and you're like, all right, they move some weight. So maybe I need to think
yep,
about this one
yep,
individual case. But for most high school
yep.
students,
No.
you can pretty much give them a
More
workout and they can
so,
go on.
they're, going through all puberty and everything. They have so many hormones and stuff flowing through them. They can recover and rebuild tissue,
Mhm.
as quick as possible. And a lot of those teams that are in their club season right now, I really, stress, go to bed at a decent time, pick quality nutrition sources, make sure you're eating, and everything, because that's where they're lacking. They're going to club practice, they're coming here and working out, they're playing club tournaments and stuff. That's where they're, maybe they're not sleeping good enough because they have club practice till 9 o'clock at night.
Mm.
And then they're playing 12 games on the weekend, and they're eating hot Cheetos in between the games. Like, so trying to, educate them on that, to where, like, hey, like, this is going to help you play in club season. Like, you'll probably actually have a better club season now that you're training
Right.
off season than you did last year. And,
Yes.
just educating them on the importance of all those other factors.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. What else have I maybe not asked, or what else would you want to show our audience before we start the wrapping up process here?
I mean, I can go here, like, with, the Fit software, it really makes it easy where you can have, this is like my annual plan. So I got baseball this, November, this was their preseason program. I assigned a wellness check. This is something new I'm working on, just working on it with baseball. They're kind of my test dummy team because I've been working with them the longest. So, I want to test something out. I test it on myself and I test it on baseball,
Okay.
because they'll give me the most feedback, whether they like it or not, and everything. So, this kind of, this is an easy way for me to see, what phase of training my kids are at and everything, what we're doing, and it just, breaks it down. So, we can look at, football's off season program. We're in a GPP phase right now. We're in week 2, so we're at, if you're thinking 5-3-1, we're at that 3 right now.
Yep.
And then we'll go into the actual, 5-3-1, and then, I just, because of time wise, it worked out better. I, put in a deload week, but that deload week, I might, scratch as much of the weight room time, and we might be out doing more, velocity work on the turf, if we can get on the turf,
Right.
stuff like that. Big on the medicine ball stuff, big on box jumps. This Thursday is football goes Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that's why we don't do as much, high end velocity work and sprinting, high central nervous system stress on this day, because it is our squat day. So
Yep.
that's where we get our stress from. That's why we just do the contact prep, because then we're looking, hey, 24 hours away, we're getting our third lifting day in for the week.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is probably the hardest mental one day, just because of the front foot elevated split squat. It's a new lift to them. They're really thinking about it. Their foot's up on a bumper 45, full range of motion, knee to the ground. So I usually try to make the rest of that stuff just very, simple, to where, their main focus is just on that front foot elevated split squat. And then conditioning will also be, super simple. Like I said, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, line hops, bear crawl, carries, just something to get their heart rate up, let it recover, get their heart rate up, let it recover.
And now this would be the one that we're looking at with football here. This would be you're there for 2 days, and then the third
Yep.
day they're going to
The
be with
football coach
coaches.
is running. Yep.
Okay.
So, and a lot of that is just, getting the coaches to buy into the process and be like, yes, we're not doing everything like you used to do it, but if you follow this plan, by spring break, is what I keep on telling them, if everything goes wrong, we will be power cleaning, we will be back squatting like you
Yep.
want to. Like the coach that used to want it run the weight room for the football team, like he wants, multiple 225 power cleaners.
Yep.
Never really given me a good reason. I was like, but that's what he wants. It's his football team. Like, we're still going to do it. The head coach, like, he's
Yep.
always been a bench squat power clean guy. So, I still got to throw in those things that make the coaches happy. So I continue to work with them and show success.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
And I didn't ask this earlier, but I know that you briefly mentioned it. You working with every team at each one of those schools, or are you just doing just a
whichever
handful?
teams want to work with me, I'm not going to turn
Okay.
a team down, but I'm also one guy. So if you don't want to work with me, I'm not going to go out of my way to try to convince you. Like, it's more of what my boss always says, it's FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, I started off with volleyball and baseball at Collins. During the summer, I picked up boys basketball. And then, it just happened. My lifting sessions would end with those teams, like right as football was going into the weight room. And
Mm,
I just asked the coach, like, hey, can I just go in there and coach technique? So, for that whole summer, I wasn't writing the programming. I didn't give my opinion on the programming, even though I wanted to.
yep.
I just went in there and I coached technique for an hour, 3, 4 days a week for the football team. Taught proper clean, made sure the guys were hitting good depths, weight room safety, clips on the bar, just stuff like that. I was just around building that trust. And,
Mhm.
once in season hit, they let me run the in season program. And
Mm,
now they're just like, here's the program. Like, you do
nice.
what you see fit with it.
Well,
So,
I think that's a powerful lesson too, especially at the high school level, because
mhm,
so many of these coaches for a very long time have been expected to run their own weight room,
yep,
and to be able to build the rapport with the coaches to
yep,
trust you enough to give
yep,
you that responsibility, that takes time to develop.
yep,
It's not just going to be a switch that you can flip on and off, right? It's got to be something that's built up over time, and I think that's a great perspective to be able to give. You have this knowledge that
yep,
you were willing to give, but you had to
yep,
build the trust before it could
yep.
actually get there.
I think that's the biggest thing with high school sports and anything. And that's, um, one of the conflicts in my position at UofL Health is you're not at the school all the
Mm,
time. So when you're there, you have to make those relationships count. So, at Collins, I work with football, both lacrosse teams, baseball, softball, volleyball, track, um, both basketball. I mean, almost 10 teams. Pretty much every team at Collins, I see the athletes. And then, at Shelby County, I just started there in January right now. They're going through some hiring changes and stuff with the football team and stuff. So, not working with them right now. It's just, track and cheer and dance, and just building those relationships at Shelby County now to, start doing the same thing that I'm doing at Collins that I'm doing, they're crosstown rivals. They're in the same town. They're
mhm,
both in Shelbyville. Collins is on the west side, Shelby County's on the east side, 10 minutes
mhm.
apart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
gotta be an interesting dynamic. Again,
it
living
is
in
very interesting just because, like, um, I'm the same strength coach over here as I am there. I'm there for the athletes, benefit the athletes, win or losses. Yes, they play. Yes, they're rivals. But like, you know, my programming doesn't really change. It changes more to fit the needs of the space. It'll change to fit the needs of the athletes, but I'm trying to develop a system that's going to work for, the majority of high school athletes and
Mhm.
not just this school or
Yeah.
this school. Yes, you might have to go in there and plug and play and change a few things, but most of the time, as long as there's a rack with plates and a decent barbell, you're going to be able to do it. And I just, change those, like I said, those prehab exercises to fit what I need. Oh, this school, might be very lacking in, hamstring mobility and weak hamstrings. So I'll add more hamstring stuff. Or
Mhm.
this one might have terrible upper body posture. So I'll add more upper body and more carries and more core.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's gotta be an interesting dynamic, and I'm sure we could sit on here for an hour talking about some of those
Because,
differences and but how they also impact each other because you're gonna see them at one school one
yep,
day, another school,
yep,
and they could compete against each other. You could show
yep,
up to support both of them.
yep,
That's a whole interesting dynamic that I could
yeah,
only imagine what that would be like, trying to pull
it
from both
is.
sides.
It is. So, but Shelby County School District has really bought in to what we're doing at UofL Health and everything. Um, our mental health performance team there at U of L actually got a grant for Collins. They're going to be doing some education, coaches education, some research on that. We're doing a coaches clinic at Shelby County High School that's open to the entire county, middle school coaches, high school coaches. Doesn't matter what school system you go to or anything. Like, we're going to be teaching, like, and that's where like the community side of my job comes in. It's just educating the community on, proper weight training, proper nutrition, proper mental health,
Yeah.
So
That's great. That's awesome that you're giving those resources back too. I think that's a necessity, the education and parents and all of those things about what is appropriate and what isn't. Um, okay, but again, if we keep going, we're gonna keep running down rabbit holes. So let's go. Let's slowly start turning our attention to wrapping up here. So if people want to find out more about you and the work that you're doing at UofL Health and specifically at Shelby County as well as Martha Lane, how can they reach out to you? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
So the best way to reach out, social media. I'm on Twitter at Caden Ritter Ritter 43 is my Twitter and Instagram. Just look up Caden Ritter. Email is caden.ritter@uoflhealth.org. Reach out. I'll exchange my contact information just because texting is a lot easier than DMing on social media. So reach out that way. Like I said, we have a strength conditioning position open. So go to the UofL Health website, strength conditioning, type that in the search engine. It should pop up. Apply if you're interested. If you have questions about the position, reach out. This is a new initiative. I've been here a year and a half, and that's as long as the initiative has been going. So it's, you'll be at the ground level, can mold it to what, fits for you. My counterpart, he works, at 3 different high schools. I'm just out at Shelby County. I'm at 2 different high schools. I'm at Shelby County public school system. Some are in JCPS, some are private, some are Bullitt County. So, every school system is a little different on what they need.
Awesome.
But, that's how you get a hold of me. If you guys have any questions, let me know.
Awesome, Coach. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
So, thank you.